Yes, sir. Welcome to the mission. I'm your show host, Brian Butler, and I'm honored to have with me today as my guest, Captain Christopher Cassidy. Captain Cassidy had a 28-year career as a naval officer, serving 11 of those years as a Navy SEAL and 17 as a NASA astronaut. He is one of only 3 people to have served in both of those elite professions. As an astronaut, Chris flew in space 3 times. As a Navy SEAL, Chris served 2 6-month deployments to Afghanistan. Chris now serves as the president and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum in Arlington, Texas. Captain Chris Cassidy, how are you, sir, and welcome to the mission.
Hey, Brian, thank you very much. Glad to be with you.
Let's talk about your military service. Hey, one of the things when people hear Navy SEALs, I know for myself, I think about discipline, I think about service, I think about grit, mental aptitude, mental fortitude, and I also think about a particular training, which is your BUDS training. And would you mind, speaking to that? Because I know not very many people, like you said, 4,000 applicants to be astronauts, and I know it's a big number of soldiers that want to become Navy SEALs, and then they go through the BUDS training and they're not able to make it through. What were your thoughts on that training, and how do you think you were able to persevere and push through and complete it?
Yeah. So the training is intense. There's lots out there on the internet and videos and whatnot that describe it, and it's all pretty accurate. The biggest takeaway, though, Brian, for me, was the light bulb dawning at some point that you don't make it through alone. The instructors, it's their job and they're good at it, about pushing every individual in the class to their physical and mental limits. And sometimes the physical and mental limit is the same bar. Sometimes the physical happens before mental, and sometimes vice versa. And every individual in the class is on a different thing. You might have a blister on your foot one day and you just can't run, and every step is painful, or you've done 1,000 push-ups already and you just don't think you can do another one. But so they find those limits for the people, each person, and it's when a group of people becomes a class, comes together, when everyone realizes you're here for the people to the left and right of you. And I remember, in a case in point, I was middle of Hell Week. So Hell Week starts on Sunday, ends on Friday. Like Wednesday of Hell Week, you're just going the whole time. I'm eating a cold MRE on the beach and just drifting off mentally, looking at the sun setting, going, this is just lousy. And my good buddy Don next to me, he just reached out, touched my forearm and said, hey, what's going on? Where are you at mentally? And just looking at him, that's all it took. Like, okay, Don's right here with me. He's cold, I'm cold. He's hungry, I'm hungry. He's sore, I'm sore. But together we'll get through it. And it's so applicable in life, right? BUDS is a lot like a season of an athlete. You're lucky if you make it through and don't get hurt. You're one ankle twist away from not. The best advice I got on the physical side of it, and mental too, is just make it to the next meal. And what does that mean? It didn't make any sense to me when the person told me this, but don't quit unless you're at the chow hall. And so what that does for you is it breaks things down. If you think about the completion of training at the start of it, you are screwed. You have to think of it in little manageable chunks. And if it's miserable existence right now, in 2 hours, you're going to be in the chow hall and you're going to eat. And then, of course, you don't quit in the chow hall. So just make it to the next meal was the best advice on the physical side, but also the mental side, because now you can deal with, okay, I can't run anymore, but I can run to the next telephone pole.
That's awesome. So, spent 11 years, Navy SEAL with deployments and active duty, and then you just decided, hey, I want this opportunity. I've done enough on land. I want to explore space now.
Yeah.
What was it about space exploration that drew you to it?
Well, I never really thought about being an astronaut as a kid or even early in my Navy career. I met this guy named Bill Shepard, who was the first Navy SEAL to become an astronaut. And in talking with him is when I realized that it's available to anybody to apply to. And my background was kind of similar to his in terms of schooling and experience. And I thought to myself, well, if they picked him, why wouldn't they pick me? And so in 2004, I got selected to become an astronaut.
And now it's time to actually exit and walk in space. What is that feeling? I mean, it's not normal for us to just step
No.
out into,
Yeah,
into nothingness. I mean,
it is not normal. And your brain still thinks like an Earth person, right? And what does that mean? So the best way I've figured out to describe this sensation, if you are in the top of a tall, tall skyscraper, you're in the very top floor, you've got glass all around you, you've got a handrail, your feet are solid. You know that even if you push your head against the glass, you're not going to fall unless you're like super freaked out by heights. But most people, you feel pretty stable in that top floor environment. You appreciate the view. It's an amazing view, but everything's fine. If you just go up one more flight of stairs and now you're on the top of the building, your toes are over the concrete edge, there's no glass, there's no handrail, and
mm,
you go over the edge and you go, your brain tells you, what are you doing? Like,
right.
don't be here. This is bad. Back
Yes.
away. Separate
Yes.
yourself from that edge. Um, that's what it's like on a spacewalk.
Mm,
Inside the spacecraft, you got windows, you got equipment all around you. We're wearing clothes just like this, shorts and t-shirts, and you feel pretty safe. Even though you know you're orbiting the Earth, you feel secure and everything's around you is providing you some quality of life. You put on a spacesuit, you open the hatch, now you're just hanging out. That's the
ooh,
equivalent of looking over the edge of the skyscraper. You see down, you're looking down at the clouds 250 miles below. They're
yes.
going by you at 5 miles a second. You
Mm,
just feel like if you let go, you're gonna fall. And we actually build it into the plan for first-time spacewalkers about 10 minutes of, we call it adaptation, where they just um, we just say, loosen your grip and loosen your grip and grab, loosen your grip and grab, wiggle
yeah.
your toes,
Right.
just relax,
Right.
realize you're not going to fall, and
Right.
then you can get on with business. But
Yes.
yeah, it gets your attention. And oh, by the way, because we're going that fast around the world, we orbit the Earth in 90 minutes, which means 45 minutes you're in the sun and 45 minutes you're in the pitch dark. And so now you add to this scary feeling, the sun just turning off when you go around the backside of the planet, and then
Yeah.
you're in the pitch dark. And so it is a crazy experience, but I love it. It's my favorite thing
Yes.
to do as an astronaut.
Oh, so we transition from that to retirement, and then you become the National Medal of Honor Museum president and CEO. Um, how did that transition take place?
You know, in life sometimes, Bryant, you do like self-reflection, right? And figure out what's important to you and what what is most meaningful and impactful in how I spend my time. And I realized when I was doing that myself, realized that I'm feeling good about contributing to something, a cause. Like you do that with the Boy Scouts of America, and it feels good. It's a job, but it feels good. You know
Yes,
you're
sir.
doing good for people and young people in America's future. And I realized that giving to the country was something that meant a lot to me. And so with that, it just was a nice fit. And they ultimately offered me the job as a president. And then here I came. And I'm so glad I did.
Just if you had to summarize your top three tasks in that role, what would those be?
Yeah, it's really about awareness. Like we're building a museum that happens to be located in Arlington, Texas, but it's for the nation.
Mm,
Uh, and so getting people across the country aware about the project. Of course, in my old job, we used to say no bucks, no buck Rogers. And so the same thing is true here. If we don't have the money, we can't build it. So
right.
fundraising is part of that, but that ties exactly with awareness of the mission. So those two, and then just kind of managing the staff. We've got a small staff of about 20 people, and we're here in Choctaw Stadium. In fact, right behind the camera, I'm looking out at the field where the XFL guys practice. And so
Awesome.
just the small startup nature of a nonprofit trying to get off the ground.
Right, right. Well, that's great. I read I think it's part of the mission statement. Excuse me if I misspeak, but it talks about developing people to be extraordinary, and that all people have the ability to become extraordinary, and that's one of you all's goals as well.
Yeah.
How do you think people tap into their extraordinary side? What are some tips that you use and that you would give to other people to tap into the extraordinary? Because most times we just are happy being ordinary and average.
Yeah, it's a good question, Brian. And if you say that, it sounds super huge, kind of like it makes me think of just make it to the next meal, break that goal into something, just help an elderly person today, right? Like that, just do something small.
Yes.
And then it'll become a habit. And then you'll always help that person lift their suitcase into the overhead bin. You don't even think about it.
Right.
But also in terms of courage, because the Medal of Honor, ultimately, it's about some normal person who did something super courageous on a day in battle. And not everybody who visits our museum or kids who learn about our programs that we're unrolling will have the opportunity to demonstrate courage on the battlefield. But and one of our Medal of Honor recipients, he says this, and I love it, is where everybody's not from equal backgrounds or equal means, but every single one of us is equal in that we have unlimited access to courage. You can use it now and you can use it every day, and it'll always be filled. The bucket is always filled and available to you. Yes. And courage doesn't have to be on the battlefield. It could be a tough conversation with a loved one. It could be, gosh, I want to move jobs, but it's going to be painful, hard. There'll be some uncertainty. Will I like my new job? So that takes courage to change direction in life. Sure. And so there's all these things that in our ordinary lives require courage. And you know what? This is something that I also figured out in getting to know some of these Medal of Honor folks and kind of exploring this concept. Somebody could have the courage to do unbelievable things on the battlefield, but scared to have a tough conversation with their teenage kid, right? It doesn't mean if you're courageous in one area, you're impervious to it in others. It's different for us in all aspects of life. And so exploring that concept has been fun for me in this job and enlightening. And that's what we hope to inspire people. And you said accurately, we want people to live extraordinary lives, and we want to inspire and equip them to do that. But it starts with just small stuff.
To do a little switch, and this is all interconnected, that you're in extremely good shape. And it seems that you take your physical fitness seriously. So I saw that you competed in an Ironman, and then you also did a 3-week cycling trip through the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah.
How does that get on your radar to do a 3-week cycling trip? I mean, to the Amazon rainforest.
That's a good question. A buddy of mine who's Brazilian, he's my same age, and I was in Brazil a couple years before that trip that you're talking about, and on his coffee table, he had a photo book of him riding through the jungle when he was 25 years old. I was like, dude, his name's Osvaldo. Osvaldo, this is amazing. How was it? And we started talking about it, and he said, well, would you like, if I do it again, would you like to do it with me? And I said, heck yeah, sure. And lo and behold, a year later, he called me up and said, okay, let's plan this for the fall of I think we did it in 2015 2017, fall of
Yeah.
2017. Let's do it then. All right. So it helped to have a local person who knew to how to plan it.
Right.
And then and a little bit what we were getting into, it
Yeah.
would be totally something different just to fly into Brazil and get on a bike and wing it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah.
We carried about 50% of the calories that we needed. The rest he knew that we could just get from local indigenous villages.
Awesome.
And water the same. It was so cool, particularly for me, having seen the Amazon jungle from space,
Right.
which is really the heart, the lungs of Earth.
Yeah.
That you don't realize it, but all of that vegetation is essential to the flow of water, the moist part down, and getting water up in the atmosphere and converting carbon dioxide in. All of that stuff. I'm
Yeah.
not a scientist, so I'm not describing it perfectly, but you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
And then to see it then from 6 feet eye level on the ground, it was so super cool. So that was fun. That was 3 weeks. It was hard. It
Yeah.
really was hard. We carried all of our gear, and
Yes.
we were out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. What is a typical day of being physically fit look like for you? I'm sure you work out. What type of workouts do you do?
Well, now I'm 53, but my brain sometimes thinks that I can do stuff like a 30-year-old. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little bit figuring out what the new program should be for me, but I love the Peloton bike.
Mm.
What I like about it is it has all this data on the side and you can kind of be competitive. And for me, it's one thing if I just get on something and spin. It's another thing if I'm like, oh, there's Brian, he's passing me. No way am I going to let him pass me today. And
Right.
I push myself that way. So I like the Peloton bike and I like to swim. I used to be a big runner back in the day, but I'm doing less of that now. My hips are kind of not liking it as much, and so it's more swimming and biking,
Right.
and more body weight gravity exercises, pull-ups, push-ups, and dips.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Yes.
but one thing, this is interesting. We've had people on the International Space Station for 20 years, and what we've learned from that, from the human body perspective, if you're in zero gravity, your bones deteriorate in their health, like an elderly person, severe osteoporosis, unless you do loaded weight-bearing exercises, particularly on the large muscle groups for your spine and your butt and your back and your legs. And that eliminates bone density decay.
Wow.
So I really now putting that into more of my plan, and so doing more squats and deadlifts just to kind of keep my bones healthy and strong. I don't need to be squatting 300 pounds all the time, but I can't.
Yes.
But just making sure that I'm loading up the bones is important.
Right.
Can I real quick funny story about that? When I
Yes.
first became an astronaut, our class, we got to meet John Glenn, and
Yes.
it was a special day, and we had 20 minutes with him in a private room, and I asked him, "Hey, sir, thanks for a lifetime of giving to the country. Do you have any regrets about anything?" And he stopped and paused and he goes, "I regret not stretching earlier in my life. Stretching is important, so do it." And I was like, whoa, this is John Glenn telling me how I should stretch. And
Yes. Yes.
so that's I think a lesson for us too.
That we don't think about stretching and
Right.
Yeah.
Just
So
give me the rock. I'm ready to run right now.
I'm ready. That's exactly right. So what do you do each day to kind of calm your center and deal with the stresses of everyday life mentally? What do you do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not immune to all those stresses, and I have them. I think everybody is. But one thing I've been doing for a number of years is I have one of these page a day Sudoku calendars. So I do a Sudoku puzzle every morning, and it doesn't take long, but it's my little Zen moment, and I just sit there. I don't look at my phone. I'm just zoning out doing my Sudoku puzzle.
Yes.
And And I'm a little psycho about it now. Like if I don't do it, I feel like, oh, something bad's gonna happen. I need to, kind of like a superstitious baseball player, not wiping the ground the same way with your feet each time.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But just that, I mean, and I do, the physical stuff is part of the mental thing for me. When I go through a period, maybe it's the holidays or whatever, where you're traveling, or if I'm traveling a bunch and doing a lot on the road, you kind of fall off fitness for a bit, whether it's a week or a couple weeks or whatever. It all happens to everybody.
Yes.
You kind of feel good, not as good. Your belt is a little tighter, and it all kind of wraps up into the mental thing.
Right.
So that 20 minutes of getting sweaty is more than just 20 minutes of getting sweaty.
Yes, 100%. It is interconnected, mind-body connection there. So,
yeah.
All right, that's excellent. Well, as we're exiting, I certainly appreciate every minute of time you're able to give me today. I can't help but to notice over your shoulder you've got a WWE wrestling belt. It looks like. Are you a big fan of wrestling, or?
Well, I never have been until I got into this job, and WWE has been an amazing partner of the Medal of Honor Museum, and they highlight a Medal of Honor story once a quarter and play it at one of their venues. And when they were here in Dallas for WrestleMania a year ago-ish, they presented our foundation with this belt, and you can't see it, but right there is on the side of the belt, it's got a Medal of Honor logo that they put on there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's very nice. That's very nice. So, okay, Captain Chris Cassidy, I appreciate every minute that you gave me today and my audience. Thank you so much. Are there any things that you'd like to speak about or talk about concerning the museum, any upcoming? I know it's not open officially yet, but do you want to share your social media handles that people can visit and get?
Yep. mohmuseum.org is about our project. I'm on Instagram personally as AstroSeal. But I think just a real quick summary, your passion for youth and inspiring future of America is what we want to do with the Medal of Honor Museum, and we'll have programs.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the mission today, sir. And I look forward to seeing you down the road there. So,
okay. Me too. Thank you.